Each element is their own battery. We talk about batteries in a team. When you bring Hu Tao, you bring Bennett as a battery. When you bring Kaching, you bring Fischl as a battery. When you bring Eula, you bring Chi-Chi as a battery.
Hello there, Flip here, and today we are back with another Genshin court. Honestly, the reason this took so long is because we actually had a convict. I made the video, fully edited it and everything, but they kind of just quit the game, and I felt it would be wrong or just disrespectful to still post a video at that point, so I just abandoned it. So instead, I will be rounding up a repeating offender who I've talked about before, the furry himself, Erotic Walrus. He makes videos about almost all Genshin topics in general, with his meta videos being a main point of contention, even adopting new things from the last time which will also be covered, and also still having the same issue I said almost a year ago, in which in a lot of his videos he says a lot of words with very little substance. Anyways, let's dive into our first piece of evidence, which is going to be a tier list. Yay!
They're all going to be C0. I tried doing them at like optimal constellations, but then some of them were like C4, some of them C2, some of them C6. It just wasn't really fair. Like, oh, I'm going to have to overinvest, right?
C0 4 stars is an absolute horrible metric to judge characters at, especially legacy ones, which you can guarantee from the shop, and a lot of them have been free at certain points. A lot of 4 stars are very incomplete at C0, and especially if you wish, most people have more 4 stars with coins than 4 stars at C0, so already off to a questionable start.
C0 is really unfair for the traveler, but even regardless with it being at C0,
the traveler is even assumed to be C0.
Bumped up a little bit, Barbara's bumped up a little bit, so feeling a little more comfortable putting these characters a little higher up, especially for people who's just starting the game. Barbara might be even like low B tier because you have no other options if you just started off, right?
By the way, I can already predict a lot of people are going to say this tier list is for new players, which is why everyone is at C0. But the tier list is never stated to be neither in the title or intro of the video, and it's also contradictory because he assumes Zhao and Scaramouche have a C6 as far as I'm supporting them. So very, very welcoming to new players indeed.
With like her lack of synergy with Dendro makes it just or her limited synergy with Dendro, right? Like, it's an awkward character. She kind of got gutted by Hoyoverse. I don't know what they were thinking with her synergy.
Saying Beidou has limited synergy with Dendro is kind of wild. Beidou being a non-trigger allows her to be slotted on Hyperbloom teams as the 4th slot quite comfortably, as she doesn't interfere with Hyperbloom ownership that much. Also, her Aggravate team, especially in this current Abyss, is also really good. You can say other characters gained more from Dendro than Beidou did, but saying that she has limited synergy just doesn't seem that honest.
Played in a lot of different teams. Fischl, oh, this is really, I think Fischl is high B tier.
Nah, I'm done. Nah, I'm out. We are not doing this.
Tried to push her into A tier, but honestly, with Kuki Shinobu sitting around, yeah, Kuki Shinobu's down there. Tough to put her in A tier. I think Kuki Shinobu deserves that spot.
What? They can both be in A tier. What makes that not possible? Fischl is one of the most flexible characters in the game, on top of being the character that makes Kaching, his favorite character, relevant. She also just holds together all Electro-based Quicken teams with how her A4 interacts with Aggravate. I don't really want to focus on where he places things, the reasoning is more important, but I think this is just way too wild to not be noted.
But just overall synergy wise, she's also very awkward, right? With most, like, imagine if she worked with Venti, imagine if she worked better with a lot of the Nemo characters. She worked with some of them, but is...
Why would Venti working with Klee make Klee more valued or better? If Klee and Venti were an amazing synergy, that would just make Klee Venti dependent, which isn't a character you really want to be dependent on. And for Ventiable content, Klee and Venti already work together fine. Venti allows Klee to consistently enact her AoE. Her mind's not getting sucked is stupid, but it really isn't that relevant.
Mona nowadays is pretty decent, I would say. Better than Kaching. Like, she's definitely up here. I would say she's better than Genshin. Mona I would even say she's better than Ganyu. I think nowadays Mona is such a flexible unit.
What does she even do? I love looking at tier lists because it really shows the depth of knowledge, and is also an extremely easy piece of evidence as it very clearly shows how creators think. Mona is one of the most dated characters in the game. Hydro characters are defined by their Hydro application, in which Mona's Hydro application is terrible, already killing her value. You can't use her for any bloom teams as they don't get affected by her omen. She can only be used on Vape when paired with the Jingcho or Yelan, but it isn't worth it overusing a character like Fischl to enable Overvape, or an Onoma unit, or just using Yelan and Jingcho together. Mona's only good team is Freeze, in which she is a Kokomi side grade, and besides one-shot comps, that's about it.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
A Freeze character, she can be a Harbor Bloom character, she can be Electro Charge,
Electro-charged Mona?
C0 Toma is probably hovering somewhere like down here, maybe even here. Put it right there.
Do I even need to say anything at this point?
One of these tier lists is to show you guys that when it matters, when it's crunch time, which characters are more reliable than others.
Yes, that is exactly why Jean, Yoimiya, Venti, Shenhe, and Keqing are above Fischl. Facts, my brother, spit your shit indeed.
Yaya actually is an interesting one. I think Yaya has pretty good value, but people don't use her because Baiju's coming out, right? And there's other healers such as Kokomi with good application available, so she kind of falls down, but I think Yaya and Barbara sits in similar places.
I'm actually lost for words at this point. A video has never just defeated me like this before. I'm considering quitting and stepping down as judge. Who wants to take my place? Okay, keep in mind this was also before Baizu and Kirara's release, in which Yaya was a lot more valuable, being your only defensive option for Aggravate, allowing you to use Fischl and an Aggravate damage dealer more comfortably, and also one of the easiest ways to build Nilo teams, and she is somehow worse than Barbara, who isn't bad, but let's move on.
But a solid A tier support character with some shield and Dendro, and I think that's good. It doesn't make it amazing, but I don't think he's quite like around the B tier. Kaveh, I think, is gonna be a very weird character hovering around C tier.
It's actually kind of impressive how some of his more accurate rankings happen to be on characters that aren't even out yet. And that will wrap up our first piece of evidence. Wow. He certainly has some of the most takes of all time. At least with Sekka, it's funny. But here I think it just highlights depth of knowledge again, if anything. I don't think Walrus is that up to date with the Dendro shifts really, and it shows, especially with the Toma, Yao and Fischl placement. Also, his assumptions were just so convoluting, contradicting, and confusing. And for that, and just for how much was off in that tier list, we will be having a starting resentence of 2 years. I will also be giving an additional 3 months for every atrocity above Fischl in the B tier. And I could keep going, but let's just leave it off with all the people in B tier for a total of an additional 2 years. We should just move on into the next piece of evidence. I don't even...
Is Shenhe not power crappable, whereas I think Fadozan is? It's because of money. All 4-star characters can be power crept, even including unique buffers. I still think she can't be power crept. You know why? Because there's money to be made. Making a 5-star Yunjin, yes, it'll kill the character of Yunjin, but at the same time, it'll make people who needs this specific niche be able to open their wallets or pour out the gems they've saved to invest into a character that likely will be much longer lasting.
I feel like he is ignoring the fact that getting a C6 of these units is really good whale bait. These characters are only run with their intended 5 stars most of the time, and with someone like Farazan, unlike other 4-star niche buffers, she isn't a functional unit until C2, and even then it's arguable until her C6. So any Skara or Zhao mains will be forced to pull more on a 4-star unit that has no guarantee until they can get them to a usable con, and they might also get Wanderer constellations along the way, and then once they'll pull more Wanderers. I don't think it's a coincidence that Shenhe is the only 5-star niche buffer because they probably realized 4-stars lead to more money.
Let's just talk about how it makes a whale feel that they open their wallet, spend a couple $1,000 maxing this character out, C6, R5, right? And then you release a character that pretty much usurps her. It doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth, and especially doesn't really do much for brand loyalty going forward.
Making people pull a C6 4-star and then power creeping them also doesn't look good for brand loyalty.
That there's no other character in the game that can be power crept. You're saying Shenhe unique buffers are like the only characters that however can't really power creep? Well, not quite, because now we have to move into character like Kazuha.
The meat riding is absolutely off the charts with this one.
Because they've done it in the past, right? A character like Venti, who people would thought, oh, well, there's no way they can power creep Venti. First and foremost, he's an Archon. And of course, how are you going to power creep a character so broken already? Well, Hoyoverse came in, showed you guys exactly how easy it is to kill off a character with Kazuha.
Kazuha never really power crept Venti. I still don't understand this notion. They don't even belong to the same role. When Kazuha first came out, if I remember correctly, Venti was still able to dogwalk most content, as there still wasn't an excess of bosses or unventiable enemies. Venti was never power crept, he just became less favorable, where characters like Raiden and Ayaka being added made Kazuha more valuable. But they still don't serve the same function in the team. The only traits they share is that they are Onimo and they have CC. You quite literally said at the start of your video that characters that only share some traits is not true power creep.
I just want to start by laying some groundwork. When we say power creep, let's be real here. Taking a character like Xingqiu versus a character like Yelan. Many would say Yelan is a 5-star version of Xingqiu, but only in the sense of like stats and general usefulness, right? You want more damage, as much of it as possible, and Yelan provides you that. However, there are parts of Xingqiu's kit damage reduction effects as well as healing. So in that sense, are you really going to say Yelan is a full-on power creep of Xingqiu? It's not, right? Just like when I mentioned Kazuha. Do you guys ever think a character will come along that can shred enemies better than Kazuha? You see, that's a question mark. The other side,
He keeps saying over and over that Kazuha shreds resistances, but he doesn't. Viridescent shreds resistances. Kazuha just buffs damage bonus. I don't know why he has been talking about that instead of Kazuha's damage bonus.
but Shenhe, Raiden Shogun, Kazuha, these three characters, I don't think Hoyoverse will ever touch them in any way, shape, or form, because it just influences the game way too much, and it also impacts them financially way too hard. But comment down below who you think.
Okay, so guys, in this 20-minute video, he was only able to give 3 characters. And yes, that'll wrap up this piece of evidence. The walrus problem of him actively saying nothing for 50% of his video still stands. He is so lucky wasting time isn't a criminal offense, because fuck me, there was nothing too egregious in this video except his Kazuha glazing. I just really wanted to highlight his elite waffling capabilities, so I can't actually extend his sentence, but he's going to now have to run all his videos through ChatGPT so they can shorten them the fuck down. And now on to the last piece of evidence, which brings up a statistic I didn't think I would ever have to dive deep into again: usage rates.
Some characters are just lower than others when it comes to their versatility. It also seems like they're not too bad. A great character that we always have to point to is Sucrose. Why 2.3%? How does someone like Venti even have a higher usage rate than Sucrose?
The very easy and simple explanation is that usage rates are calculated by ownership rates by usage in floor 12. So all 4-stars and standard characters will inherently be at a disadvantage as they are owned more, especially the free units who have an 100% ownership rate. Also, thinking about this logically, people who pull a limited unit are most likely going to use them, especially newer units. And as Walrus does at least specify later, usage rates are submitted. If you're at the point in Genshin where you're submitting your Abyss runs to survey, you are probably very deep into the Genshin hole, maybe even looking at constellations and whatnot. So no, usage rates are interesting but not a good metric, and can be very misleading without proper quoting of how skewed it is.
But don't get it mixed up, people. A character like Jean will never shoot up to 70-something%, even if the Abyss says like double your entire team's damage if you have Jean.
What? Yes, it would. Everyone would be using Jean if that was the case. I'll talk about it more when I release my Eula video, but no matter how many flaws the character has, if they just do more damage than other options, unless they are widely impractical like Sukokomon, everyone is going to use it. Keqing is one perfect example of this. She has numerous flaws, but now with Dendro, her team DPS skyrockets as she's able to drive Fischl well, and do consistent aggravates on her own which ramp up. Kuki was also really bad and still has her flaws, but now she's an amazing Hyper Bloom trigger, so all her flaws are just swept under the rug. I used to think Genshin was that complicated, but the way to buff any character is just by making them do more damage. You don't even have to fix their issues.
But I think there are certain synergies in the game that has far superior damage scaling than just doubling your damage, okay?
Tell me one character that will double your entire team's damage by slotting them in over another unit.
like theory crafters or some people who are in the depths of the dungeon trying to figure out some weird niche ways to play. Like for example, when Shinho first came out, people played her with Chi-Chi and called Chi-Chi like the cryo queen, and Chi-Chi was like, oh my god, dealing so much damage.
Not a single reputable theory crafter has ever said that. I will stake my entire channel on the line if any theory crafter was trying to genuinely sell cryo Chi-Chi with a Caesar or Shenhe.
If you can build an entire YouTube career out of just playing this character, that character is too niche.
What? Kokomi-kan is a YouTuber who mostly talks about Kokomi, and that's where a majority of his fanbase is formed. So Kokomi is a niche unit, right? I don't even know anymore. I'm just confused. What are these arguments? I feel like I'm getting dumber listening to this.
I know there's gonna be a guy commenting like, but Warriors, I've used Hazel to 36. Again, you are the minority, right? Sure, take pride in the fact that you're using and clearing the game with one of the least used characters in terms of general CN meta.
I still don't really get why CN meta is seen as this like really majestical thing. They use the same teams that most people do, and it's not like CN is a fucking hive mind. The people here probably also think some of these placements don't make sense. People hear the word CNTC and CN meta and act like it's some sacred script, when most CNTC is done independently, is hard to follow, and isn't really structured. And this is not to say like EN or KQMTC is any better. It's been memed to the point people call it poverty-C because of how much vertical investment is generally disregarded. But I don't know why the general community acts like CN meta is so different from the EN community. It's just weird. Well, that will conclude the last piece of evidence. My brain has been fried. I don't think Walrus has ever really looked into the EN theory crafting scene ever. I don't know why he's talking about it. His videos and arguments are really hard to follow, and I feel like he just doesn't know what he's talking about. I've had to watch a lot of his videos back to back, and I think his interviews and when he talks about how Hoyoverse does things are pretty good, and I enjoyed watching them. But his meta takes on whenever he looks at this data is just so mind-numbing because he says so little with a lot of words, and almost nothing he says is really helpful. Let's just round out his sentence. First, I'm finding you however much a lobotomy costs because I definitely need one after this. And 2, I extend your sentence by 3 years for making me have to talk about usage rates again for a total of 7 years in the big house. And unlike Walrus, I actually know when to stop talking, so that will be all. Court is now closed. All in all, it was pretty fun to revisit Walrus almost a year later. I don't even know what to say, but I hope the video is at least funny. And on that note, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Erotic Walrus. I hate saying that name, as I'd love to hear it and I respond to almost every single comment. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.